primary school to accommodate those on the west side of the lake is badly needed. The Catholic Church is attempting to sell St Joseph's School on the hill and the former presbytery next door for a motel development. Across the road, what has been a temporary church for more than 60 years is also up for sale. The main reasons for relocating the complex include the noise factor and the dangerous conditions that exist at this intersection. Plans have been approved by Council to build a larger primary school and church next to the new presbytery situated off Main Road, Toronto. However, there's one hitch: this busy stretch of road, which is supposed to be the main access point to the new development. The DMR wants an intersection built, which could cost the church up to $250,000. Negotiations are continuing, but as Father Hart points out, the church is anxious to get the development underway.
Things such as the Schools Commission grant that we've applied for, all these things are, in a sense, depending upon our access to our property. So the government would in no way be interested in giving us a grant unless they knew that we had access, because after all they are responsible for their money. And regarding the accommodation and the heavy increase in population at the school for next year, we're 2 classrooms down, so we do need for our forward planning to know an answer as quickly as possible, yes.
Random breath testing in the Hunter got off to a slow start tonight, with all drivers tested before 8 o'clock registering a negative reading. Groups of 6 cars were being pulled over along City Road at Merewether Heights and asked to produce their licence before breathing into a bag. Only statistics relating to age and sex were then recorded for future study purposes. On the whole, most motorists seem to feel little inconvenience by the whole procedure. Within 3 minutes they are on their way, so long as the test proves negative. And for those who now plan to avoid Merewether Heights tonight, the bus will be swapping locations every couple of hours and will remain on duty throughout the night.
A relative new sport to Australia and a lot of the waterways of Australia is a sport called paraflying. Parachuting with a difference, where the parachute now is towed behind a boat. The lady that has been involved in the sport here in Australia for some time now, Jenny Daly, and I'm going to ask her about paraflying. Jenny, paraflying in Australia is relatively new. Where did it all start?
It all started in Acapulco in Mexico, where they were pulling just normal parachutes from out of the sky behind boats. A man by the name of Tony Cohen moved to Australia and decided that he would modify the parachute and then modify the materials so that it was much safer and easier to use in water itself, and that's what it is today. He's modified it to the almost perfect chute that it is, with its certain modifications like the guidelines and the material itself.
All right, let's have a just before we go into the actual parachute itself, or the paraflight, I should say. All right, now obviously you've got the rope, now you need something to sit in, which is a harness.
Right.
Now you've got a harness here. What is this specifically designed for?
Right, this harness itself is, you sit in this, it's almost like pulling on a pair of trousers when you put it on.
I'm just wondering whether you can put it on for us.
Yes, sure. You just actually step into it. You pull it on like a pair of trousers, which is very easy. Pull it up. Then with this, you tie it round the front, which holds you in.
So that gives you total support,
yes.
And you can actually sit and have total movement while you're connected to the paraflight.
Your arms and all of your body is totally free to do as you like. These 2 clips here are then clipped onto the trace of the chute, which means that all you're doing is you're actually just sitting in the air.
So you've got total movement and total control over the paraflight.
The only way you're held in is by you're just sitting there. It's almost like on a swing.
All right, we've talked about the harness and the rope, and obviously there is the paraflight. Now you mentioned before that it is different from a normal parachute, a parachute that a person would use from jumping out of a plane if you're crazy enough. Now, you said it's different material and there's different strings and whatever. Can you just explain the chute for us?
Yeah, sure. It's modified in the way that it's only got 16 guidelines coming down to the trace instead of a normal parachute. It's got 24, which means that it's easier to use and easier to control. The material itself is ripstop nylon sailcloth, which means that it is a non-porous material, which means that once it hits the water doesn't penetrate into it, which means naturally it's not going to sink.
So, now, from what you've mentioned there, that do you have to land in the water, or can you land on?
You can land
dry
on
land
land or in the water, which depends on sort of the winds and the conditions of the day. But with you landing in the water, the chute can be taken straight out of the water and used straight again.
All right, we've talked about all of the equipment regarding it, and obviously you're going to have a fairly powerful boat,
Yes.
Which we have here. I should imagine the boat must have a certain amount of weight to be able to hold it, otherwise the chute's going to pull the boat away.
Right, well the sort of qualifications for a boat, we need at least a 15 to 16 foot boat. The minimum is an 80 horsepower. We sort of say a minimum because most of the boats that do use paraflights have got at least 80 or more. It can't be a really light boat because for the reason of wind conditions, if the paraflight gets pulled up in the air, well naturally the back of the boat's going to go with the paraflight. So it can't be a extremely light boat. It has to have a bit of weight in it, or
All right.
quite a few people sitting in it.
Okay, so we've talked about all of the gear and the boat and whatever. Now you're ready to go and play with the birds.
Yeah.
You ready?
Yeah, let's go.
Let's go. What's it like up there? Okay, obviously it's very, very important to have a good driver and a good observer. How do you regulate your height?
The height that I am now is about 100 feet. The rope itself's 150, which makes me 100 foot off the water.
Okay, how do you adjust your height?
Well, by the speed of the boat, by slowing it down with the signal of moving my legs, the speeding up is crossing them.
Right. Let's go.
Let's go.
Okay, now you said in the initial interview that you've got total control over the chute. Can you do anything more than just sit there and be towed by the boat? Can you go from side to side or what?
Yeah, by distributing my weight, by let's pulling the right, I'll go over to the right-hand side. As you can see. By pulling on the left, I'll go over to the left-hand side.
Okay, over to the left. Jenny, one of the things that we wanted to talk about was the safety aspect of paraflying. Can you just explain how safe is it up there?
With the safety aspect, it mainly depends on the boat driver. The boat driver he controls the height, where I'm going, whether I'm going to run into anything. So it's all up to him.
Now we're going into a turn. I suppose this is a tricky manoeuvre because of the change of direction of the wind.
Yeah, depending on the wind, depends on where I go. But it also has to do with the boat and where my weight distribution is.
Now I suppose that it is not necessary to stay at such a height as 100 feet all the time. It is not necessary to come down and maybe just walk on top of the water or do a few tricks, or what do you do?
Yeah, there's heaps of things you can do to make it a bit more enjoyable. You can run across the water, which then depends on the boat driver.
Now, how would you totally relax? Is there any way that you can just sit back and soak in the sun, so to speak?
Yeah, you can put your legs up.
If you can get them up.
Exactly. And just sit back and enjoy the view.
So what is this? Is this just total relaxation?
That's right.
Is there any other manoeuvres that you would like to show us?
No, I think that'll do. I'll see how I go with landing on the land.
All right, now what's the important thing about trying to land on the land?
Well, the most important thing is to land with both feet on the ground. Because if you put one foot down before the other, one leg's taking all the weight. I'm directing myself, pull on the traces to slow myself down, and a perfect touchdown.
que procedente de La Coruña se dirigía.
A Dutch freighter has run aground off Corunna on the coast of Spain. The crew have all been rescued, but in true maritime tradition, the captain has so far refused to leave his vessel. The 1,600-ton freighter is severely damaged, and salvage is believed to be out of the question. The crew of a Panamanian-registered freighter burning out of control off the coast of Nova Scotia has abandoned ship. The fire, which broke out in the engine room, meant that for some time the vessel was cruising out of control. Canadian Coast Guard ships are on their way to the scene. At midnight mass in St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican, Pope John Paul quoted from the book of Luke to tell the story of how Jesus was born in a manger in Bethlehem. The pontiff said only Jesus had the power to enable human beings to become children of God. Thousands of pilgrims and tourists packed the largest church in Christendom for the service, which was televised live to millions more in 38 countries. In the western United States, it has truly been a white Christmas and a tragic one. 5 people have died in the fierce snowstorms which lashed 3 states. Roads were closed, airports shut down, and whole communities snowed in. In France, a number of cities are facing a wet Christmas as floodwaters rise. The River Seine is in danger of breaking its banks in several suburbs of Paris, and police say the floodwaters could even reach the famed Champs-Élysées.
The outerline clubs are the most affected by the introduction of random breath testing. Secretary-Manager of Cardiff Workers Club, Mr Mick Henshaw, says the Christmas period is usually one of the club's busiest, but that is not the case this year.
Bulk beer, we've dropped from 127 to 87 18s a week over this last week period. Christmas parties that normally are held in the club, they're no longer here. We are right on the fringe of an industrial area, and we're normally booked solid between the Christmas and the New Year period for Christmas parties and break-up parties, and we've had none this year at all.
And what action will you be taking?
Well, if things continue like this into the new year, we look like we're going to make retrenchments, fall back onto permanent staff only, and any casuals that are required will be just to be advised.
So this will mean unemployment in the liquor trades industry?
Not only the liquor trade industry, but also bands, the international artists, and we have the overseas rock concerts, and we have these overseas artists that come here. Well, we're going to have to cancel their contracts. if people can't come to the place. The industry is suffering badly with this booze bus. We would accept 0.08, but 0.05 we think is too damn low.
Some clubs in the inner city have closed over the festive season in an effort to cut costs. But Assistant Secretary
Have you
Manager
noticed
of
any
South
changes at the club since the introduction of random breath testing?
says his club decided to take the gamble and stay open.
Random breath testing
He says the main difference has been a change in the club's clientele.
Yes, Janelle, we've noticed that a lot of new faces around the club since this has come in. We feel that this is the people who live around the area here, close to South Lee's Club, now must come and drink at a watering hole very close to their own home now. And we've also noticed that a few of our good members who used to come here after work and have a few beers and then drive home now can't afford to take the risk. So they have, of course, had to go back and start drinking in clubs or pubs back near their own home. But there has definitely been a change in patrons, as I said, the local people coming back to South, which is good to see.